Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Andrew Ford and I'm here to share more of my story about being a musician with tinnitus. This video is going to be more of a personal account of how I developed tinnitus, how I learnt to cope, and crucially, how I've not let it ruin my career as a musician. If you are looking for more general information about tinnitus preventative measures and coping strategies, I recommend checking out the two videos I made previously. The links are down below. I started my first band when I was 15 or 16. Brought together through the love of bands like Metallica and Pantera, some friends and I formed an instrumental metal band called Emissary. Instrumental mainly because we could never find a singer, but also to leave more space for indulging in drumstick guitar solos, of course. I then went on to study contemporary music at uni and joined an electro band called Sound Corruption. We used to rehearse in my cellar, which was a damp, inhospitable environment just large enough to fit a 5-piece band. One particular rehearsal was so loud that an old man who lived all the way down the other end of the street came to complain about the noise. Later, when I was watching TV, I noticed this faint ringing sound in my left ear. It persisted for about a week or so, and I was relieved when it finally faded away. I had already been wearing earplugs at this point, but I definitely started to take them more seriously after this. But unfortunately, a few months later, the tinnitus came back. This time it was here to stay, and my right ear had joined the party too. It took me several months, but I was able to cope, and it didn't bother me too much. I joined other bands and carried on as normal. Music was pretty much involved in all aspects of my life. I was writing and recording in my bedroom studio, going to band practices and watching gigs, and also working behind the bar in a music venue. Tinnitus was always there in the background and it was okay, but slowly it was becoming more of a nuisance and it was beginning to make me very anxious. So I got a stronger set of earplugs. And then when that wasn't enough, I got some ear defenders and wore them with the earplugs too. But things still felt too loud. My tolerance for noise was dropping and I was starting to develop hyperacusis, which is where sounds become unbearable and even painful in some cases. The other downside of wearing so much headgear was that I couldn't really hear the music anymore. I always took pride in my ability to play in the pocket, but now my timing was all over the place as I couldn't hear hi-hats and count-ins. So I would stare at the drummer and try and visually see the beat, but this was only vaguely successful. Basically, what I am trying to say here is that earplugs are essential for protecting your ears against tinnitus and hearing loss. However, you have to use them in the right way. Because if you go to the extreme like I did, not only can it lead to hyperacusis, it can actually make the tinnitus worse. But I will explain in more detail later on. So one night after a reggae gig, I was driving everyone home and we were all singing along to the tunes on the stereo. I noticed things had stepped up a gear, and when I got home, everything was silent, but my ears were absolutely screaming at me. It's hard to describe the volume exactly. Being a phantom noise in my head, it was kind of intangible. It was nowhere, yet everywhere all at once. I was aware of several different pitches, all in the upper range, but I couldn't pinpoint them accurately. There was also white noise in the mix too. I remember thinking that this was so extreme that if it got any worse, well, it was pretty dark, let's just say that. With the heaviest heart, I made the decision to quit all the bands I was in and stop making music. By this time, I had already been seeing an audiologist and getting regular hearing checkups for a couple of years. I had lost a large chunk of hearing in higher frequencies, but the interesting thing was that my hearing had stabilized. My tinnitus had jumped up in volume, but my hearing hadn't actually got any worse. Perhaps tinnitus was related to hearing loss, but not intrinsically linked. I was given hearing aids, but I refused to wear them as everything sounded so horrible and the feedback was unbearable too. I was eventually referred to a tinnitus specialist and started tinnitus retraining therapy and cognitive behavioural therapy. Now, tinnitus retraining therapy, or TRT, sometimes gets a bad rap. It can be very expensive and it's not guaranteed to work for everyone. I'm really lucky living in the UK. I got TRT free on the NHS. One reason I think it was so successful for me was that it was paired with cognitive behavioural therapy, or CBT. These two therapies combined were nothing short of life-changing for me. The goal of tinnitus retraining therapy is to help you habituate your tinnitus so that it no longer bothers you. This is achieved by recalibrating your brain to interpret tinnitus in a way that is less threatening. The CBT element looks into problematic thoughts we have regarding tinnitus and helps us to challenge them with more realistic and helpful thoughts. But this is no quick fix. Like learning how to play an instrument, we need to forge new neural pathways, and this takes time and a lot of work. These two therapies drastically reduce the negative impact of tinnitus on my life. I can honestly say that tinnitus doesn't really bother me anymore. It's no longer important. The volume is still pretty loud, but I forget that it's there. If you would like a more comprehensive overview of TRT and CBT, then check out part 2 of my Tinnitus and Hearing Loss for Musicians series. Alongside therapy, 2 other things really helped me, and they are kind of related. The first was reducing my use of earplugs, and the second was embracing hearing aids. Now, reducing my use of earplugs may sound like crazy talk, but hear me out. The fastest way to make your tinnitus worse, albeit temporarily, would be to go sit in an anechoic chamber for 5 minutes. The absolute absence of external noise causes the brain to hunt around for something to grab onto. So it will grab onto the tinnitus. As I mentioned earlier, when things got really bad for me, I was wearing earplugs and ear defenders when I was gigging. Not only that, I was even wearing earplugs when I went to the pub. This wasn't particularly helpful as I was struggling to hear conversation, but do you know what I wasn't struggling to hear? Well, you guessed it, tinnitus. Not being able to hear properly, I was isolating myself from the people around me, which made me retreat further inwards, and I became more depressed. So what is the answer? Should I throw away my earplugs? Well, no. As my good friend the Buddha would say, it's best to take the middle way. If you are around live music, definitely wear earplugs. Get a pair of musician's earplugs and take regular breaks by going outside every once in a while. If you're going to the pub or walking down a noisy street, leave the earplugs in your pocket. So what about hearing aids? Well, they are kind of the opposite to earplugs. Hearing more of the sounds around you means that tinnitus gets relegated to the background. Conversation is much easier and you are less likely to feel isolated from those around you. I think it took me a year or so to fully habituate my tinnitus once I had started therapy. My therapist encouraged me to keep engaging with music, and I slowly started to reorientate my life. I came up with a new mission statement, and that was to help people through music. So I started teaching piano, and then I stumbled upon all sorts of beautiful and interesting musical instruments. This ignited in me a desire to create music of a more relaxing and introspective nature. A way to channel my emotions and create something beautiful out of my struggles. This has been quite a journey, but I really feel that I am in a much better place musically and mentally today. Although I loved what I was doing before, something was lacking and I didn't feel as fulfilled as I do now. However, I haven't completely turned my back on the reggae and drum and bass scene. I did join a band called Soundation for a few years, and then I went on tour with a band called the Future Dub Project, which was great fun. So I guess my message to you is that there is hope. If you are struggling with tinnitus, go talk to a trained therapist and get your hearing checked out. Keep wearing those earplugs, but not obsessively, and make sure to take regular breaks with music. Keep the volume down where possible too. If you would like to join a supportive community of musicians with tinnitus, then I have started a Facebook group, which is linked down below. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and I'll try my best to answer them. Thank you for watching and look after yourself.